The way someone complains about their coffee order might tell you more about their entire personality than anything they could ever tell you directly. Not because of what they're complaining about, but because of how they're doing it. You probably didn't notice this before. Most people don't. We tend to write off complaints as just noise. Background complaints we hear every single day from the people around us. Here's what psychologists have discovered: those tiny, seemingly insignificant grievances. They're actually windows into how someone sees themselves, how they relate to others, and what they're genuinely afraid of. And once you understand what to listen for, you'll never hear a complaint the same way again. Let's say you're at dinner with a friend. The waiter brings their meal and the eggs are slightly overcooked. Now pay attention to what happens next. Some people will say nothing at all. They'll eat the eggs and feel resentful the entire evening. Others will quietly flag down the waiter with an apology, almost asking permission to have their food corrected. And then there are people who will make a visible scene, calling the waiter over with irritation, making sure everyone around them knows about the mistake. The question isn't whether the eggs were overcooked. The question is, why did their reaction tell such a complete story about who they are? Psychologists call this the complaint signature, the unique pattern in how each person expresses dissatisfaction. And it's remarkably consistent. The person who apologizes while asking for their eggs to be fixed, they likely grew up in an environment where making requests felt dangerous, where asking for things meant risking rejection or causing problems for others. That tiny apology isn't really about eggs. It's a window into their entire belief system about their own worth and whether they deserve to have their needs met. The person who stays silent and eats the overcooked eggs, they're often someone who learned that speaking up leads to conflict, that expressing displeasure makes them difficult or burdensome. Their silence isn't peaceful acceptance. It's a survival strategy from their past that's still running in the background, and the person making the scene. They might seem like they have high standards, but often, what's really happening is something different entirely. Psychologists have found that people who make disproportionate complaints about small things are frequently using those complaints as a way to feel in control when they feel powerless in other areas of their life. The eggs become a symbol of something much larger, a way to exercise authority in a situation where they actually have it. This pattern extends far beyond restaurants. Think about the friend who constantly complains about traffic. Not just occasionally, every single time you see them, traffic ruined their day. Or the colleague who has something negative to say about every meeting, every new policy, every change. Or the family member who finds fault in every gift, every gesture, every attempt someone makes to connect with them. What's interesting is that research on what psychologists call complaint frequency and complaint intensity reveals something consistent. The specific target of someone's complaints tells you exactly what they value, what they fear losing, and what makes them feel powerless. Someone who constantly complains about their appearance is often someone whose self-worth is attached to how others perceive them. Someone who endlessly complains about not having enough time usually has a deep fear of being forgotten or left behind. Someone who complains about how others treat them often learned early that their feelings didn't matter as much as other people's feelings did. In other words, their complaint isn't really about the thing they're complaining about. It's a breadcrumb trail leading directly to their core beliefs about themselves. Here's where it gets even more interesting. A study from UC Berkeley found that the way people complain actually creates a feedback loop in their brain. When someone repeatedly complains about the same type of thing, their neural pathways literally get stronger around that specific grievance. This is neuroplasticity in action. Their brain is essentially getting trained to notice and focus on that particular problem more and more. So someone who constantly complains about not having enough money, their brain is now wired to notice every financial obstacle, every expensive thing, every way they're lacking, not because it's objectively true that money is their biggest problem, but because their complaint pattern has trained their brain to see the world through that particular lens. This is actually useful information if you understand it, because it means complaints aren't just communication about a problem, they're also a window into someone's underlying beliefs, fears, and the narratives they've created about themselves. So how do you actually use this knowledge? Here are 5 ways to become fluent in reading someone's personality through their complaints. First, notice what they complain about. Is it about their body, their career, their relationships, their finances, their time, their health? The category matters because it reveals what domain of life they feel most powerless in. That's their vulnerability point. Second, notice the intensity mismatch. If someone is genuinely upset about eggs, the size of their reaction won't be proportional to the problem. This mismatch is actually a signal that something deeper is being triggered. The eggs aren't the real issue. Third, Listen for blame direction. Do they blame external factors? Do they blame themselves? Do they blame other people specifically? These patterns reveal their locus of control, their belief about whether they have power over their own life or whether life just happens to them. Fourth, pay attention to complaint recovery time. Some people complain and move on. Others carry their grievances with them for days, weeks, months. Recovery time tells you a lot about how they process disappointment and whether they can let things go. Fifth, notice the complaint audience. Some people complain only to those closest to them. Others broadcast their grievances to everyone. This reveals whether they're seeking genuine support or whether complaining itself has become a way to get attention and connection. Now, and this is important understanding, someone's complaint signature doesn't mean dismissing their complaints. It doesn't mean they're wrong or that their problems aren't real. What it means is that the way they complain contains as much information as the complaint itself. And that information, if you listen carefully, will tell you who they are. Here's the more personal part. Understanding this about others also means understanding it about yourself, because you have a complaint signature too. And paying attention to your own pattern, what you complain about, how intensely you complain, who you complain to, that's actually one of the most honest ways to understand your own personality and your own unmet needs. If you're constantly complaining about people not appreciating you, that complaint might be pointing to a genuine need for recognition. If you're always complaining about not having enough time, that might be showing you that you're afraid of not mattering. If you're perpetually frustrated with your own productivity, that might reveal that you've learned to measure your worth through achievement. Your complaints aren't just noise. They're messages from yourself to yourself about what matters, what scares you, and what you secretly want to change. And once you understand that, once you hear them as the breadcrumbs they are, you can start to make different choices. You can start asking yourself, is this complaint pointing to something real I need to address? Or is it coming from a fear or belief about myself that isn't actually true? Is this complaint pattern something I want to keep training my brain into? Or is there a different way I could look at this situation? The tiny complaints that seem so small, so insignificant, so unremarkable, they're actually one of the most honest things a person will ever reveal about themselves. And now, when you listen to how people complain, including how you complain, you're hearing the unfiltered truth about what's happening inside their mind. That's the thing about personality. Psychology that most people miss. The biggest truths about who we are aren't hidden. They're not mysterious. They're actually hiding in plain sight, in the small moments we think no one is paying attention to, in the complaints we don't think twice about making, in the grievances we voice without really thinking about what we're revealing. And now that you know what to listen for, the question becomes, what story is your own complaint signature telling about you?